Hey everybody, welcome to Cinema Trip Reviews. This week on the show, we're going to be talking about Dog Soldiers. Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema Trip Reviews. I am Wyatt, and this week I am joined by Alex. It has been a while. Welcome back to the show.
Hey.
We are going to be talking about Dog Soldiers this week. Before we get into the program, make sure to like, share, and subscribe as always. Go follow us on Twitter at Cinema Trip Views. And also make sure to check us out all month long of October for our Halloween Spooktacular. We're going to have tons of horror reviews, tons of stuff going on, and other guests as well coming on the show. So it should be a great time. So getting into the program, Alex, you chose Dog Soldiers, which this is a movie I think I've only seen once before, and it was a long time ago. So I didn't really remember a lot of this movie. What was your experience with Dog Soldiers?
I love this movie, and it's one of those movies I saw late, like one night growing up, and I liked it then. And I gotta give straight off the bat, the reason I love it is because I watched it with my son when he was about 9, maybe 8. I know a little early, but I watched horror movies with my kids. It was one of the first horror movies I ever watched them, and he loved it. It was the first movie I remember watching with him where he was just like, oh my God, I love this movie. And so now I love it because he loves it. That's the reason I watch it every year now during Halloween because I love it because he loves it that much. So we watch it together.
That's what's up. I think the only time I've seen it was probably not long after this came out. This movie came out in 2002. But it really surprised me because as you're watching it, I don't know where did you watch it, like on Amazon Prime or somewhere?
No,
or
I own it.
Oh, you own it?
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know how your version is of it, but on Amazon it looks and feels just like an 80s movie or a 90s movie. Like it looks like it has some type of like film grain to it, and it has like some of like the lines that you would get watching like a 35 millimeter movie. So I didn't know how it looked on like your transfer that you watched.
No, mine's pretty good. I during the night scenes you can kind of notice it. The night scenes are a little grainy, but other than that, I own the Blu-ray up there, and it's pretty good.
Okay, yeah, the Blu-ray probably clears it up a lot. But yeah, that transfer they have on Amazon Prime, it makes it look exactly like it. Like even though it came out in 2002, it looks like it came out in the 80s. I think it helps with this kind of movie.
Yeah. Oh, this movie definitely you can tell. Even though I think it's well done, we'll get to that. But like, it's kind of a lower budget film, Like so. I think it would help. I mean, I don't think my transfer is like that, but I could see that.
Okay, I'm gonna have to try to like scoop the Blu-ray or watch a different transfer just to see what the difference is. But yeah, this movie came out in 2002. It is directed by Neil Marshall. This was his first feature-length debut. He did like a little bit of TV stuff beforehand, but he actually went on to do The Descent, which is a very good horror movie.
Good film, yeah.
And he also went on and he actually stopped doing films for a good while. He started doing more TV. He actually did some Game of Thrones episodes. He did Hannibal.
Hey, there you go.
And then he actually returned to filmmaking with Hellboy in 2019. And we all know how that one went.
Yeah, that one didn't do well.
Yeah. So after that, he's been doing TV again. So he doesn't really have too many films in his filmography. But I mean, Dog Soldiers, I think it was a pretty decent starting point for him, though. With the budget that they had, I think they did pretty much what they could do with it.
I think it's one of my favorite werewolf movies. And I was thinking about this watching it last night where like, and maybe I'm just not a huge werewolf fan, but I do think I am. Like, I can't name too many where I'm like, I love this werewolf film. And maybe I'm just not thinking of them, but like Ginger Snaps up there, American Werewolf in London, which you did awesome
go
review
watch
on.
That review.
Yeah, that was a good review. That guy knew a ton about that movie, but yeah, it's one of my favorites, and maybe that's just from the complete lack of werewolf movies that I've watched, but I love it.
Yeah, I was very entertained, and this movie it doesn't really slog at any points. It's pretty fast paced. I guess you can say once they get into the house a little bit, it kind of slows down a little bit. But I feel like they kind of insert some action scenes pretty quickly throughout. Kind of the explanation scenes. But as far as cast, you got Sean Pertwee, who plays Wells. He actually, the only thing I really know him from was Gotham. He played like Alfred in Gotham, the dude who plays Sarge in the movie.
Yeah, Cody brought that up last night. Never put 2 and 2 together. And I was like, that is Alfred.
As soon as I saw him, I was like, I know this dude from somewhere, man. and sure enough, it was Alfred.
Never picked it up. Speaking of his casting, and this is a slight to the film, I always get the two main, like the bad guy and him mix up. I think they look so similar. And like some scenes, I'm like,
guess so.
is this guy? Like, and I'm like, oh, it's that guy.
But yeah, you got Sean Pertwee, you got Kevin McKidd playing Cooper, one of the other main characters. Emma Cleesby, as plays Megan, and then you got Liam Cunningham playing Ryan, the bad dude in the movie.
Who I think
And he
looks like
plays
Sean Pertwee.
Yeah, and he plays Davos Seaworth in Game of Thrones throughout the whole series, pretty much. So I'm actually pretty familiar with this dude.
Oh, yeah, man. There you go. A bunch of Game of Thrones ties.
Yeah, and what's interesting is this is like a complete opposite role from the role he was in Game of Thrones. He was like this honorable, such a cool character throughout the whole thing, and he's such an asshole in this movie. But he looks a lot like Jean Reno from like The Professional and
He
Godzilla
does, yeah.
and stuff. I always get them confused a little bit because they have similar facial features.
They do. Yeah, for sure.
Now, a couple things about this movie here before we get into it. Apparently they use dancers instead of stuntmen for the werewolves because they wanted to highlight the grace and elegant movements of the monsters. Which I read this fact before I watched the movie, but when you watch the movie, I feel like you don't really get too many like
graceful scenes. Yeah,
graceful scenes or just even long cut scenes of these monsters. They're pretty quick cuts. You don't get to kind of hold on to them very long.
There's really only like one long extended shot of the werewolf, and when he's in the room. I know we'll get to it, but he's pretty still the whole time. Like he's not moving too much.
Exactly. And the corpses apparently that were used in this movie were also used in Event Horizon from '97. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. Has like
long
Lawrence
time ago.
Fishburne
space movie, right?
Yeah, and Sam
like a space.
Neill
It's like Doom, basically.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Hellraiser in space, a little bit.
It's been some years since I've seen that movie.
But apparently Simon Pegg was offered a role in this as well, but he turned it down so he could, because he apparently wanted his first horror movie to be with Edgar Wright, and so he saved this role for going to do Shaun of the Dead with Edgar Wright. So
good choice.
It was a good choice. It would have been weird to have like Simon Pegg in this movie. I feel like he would have been like, I don't know.
Depends on the role he did. If he did like Spoon or somebody, like one of the lesser characters, I think it'd have been fine. But
not like Cooper or Sarge or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the last thing I have, apparently they used very little to no CGI in the movie because the directors and the producers thought that it was very overused at the time. So they really wanted to focus on the special effects.
You can tell in this movie
stuff.
Too. You totally can tell. Everything looks practical in this.
Yeah. Now, this movie, even though I think it is a solid movie, as we're going through it, I do have some just like, I feel like they're mistakes that were in the movie, unless they left them in on purpose. But there's just some very like goofy or weird, or just they were kind of breaking their own rules going throughout the movie as well. I feel
for sure there's some plot holes in this.
Yeah, a lot of plot holes.
Yeah,
it starts off in Scotland with these couple camping out. Just kind of, I don't know if they're fishing or whether they're just sitting there, and she gives them a present of like this silver like letter opener.
Yeah, like a sword, like a little sword.
Oh, I wonder when this is going to come into play. Obviously, she's giving it to him for a reason. Little we know, it doesn't even come into play until like the last 10, 20 minutes of the movie. Like
but
think
you
it would
knew
be.
It was coming.
Oh, you had to. Like the whole time I was watching this, I was like, when is this letter opener going to come? When are they going to find it? Like, where's it going to be? And I'm like, how did it even turn up into this house? But it was kind of a creepy scene of them like in the tent, and they didn't really play much music in that one as well. But you have like the zipper going up slowly. It was a little creepy.
I do agree. I mean, I wouldn't sit there as long as that guy sat there. He sat there and let that thing go up a really long time without saying shit. I'd be like, hey,
they're just staring at it.
Yeah. Like, do something, man.
Like, hey, get away from here. Throw something at it. Try to scare it. Yeah, shoot.
Yeah. Even though if something was open in my zipper, I think I'd just instinctively kick. Like, I would think it's a person.
Yeah. But yeah, she starts getting pulled out, and you get like one of the like worst stock sound effect screams that you hear in like so many movies and TV shows. It's thrown just right in there. It's so out of place, like it's so like unnatural.
Yeah, it for sure is.
At that point. But there's like no opening credits. It just cuts the dog soldiers, and then we get right in the movie. There's no opening credits or anything like that.
Which is very, like, that didn't become a modern practice till I felt like much later. Like, it's definitely modern in new cinema where you don't really get opening credits. But this time, that's ahead of its time a little bit. I don't feel like we were quite there yet.
Yeah, there's really not too many movies now, I feel, that do opening credits.
Yeah, they jump in, right? Boom, going, They save all that shit to the end.
And this is where it gets kind of funny for me here. They cut 2 hours earlier to Northern Wales. And it's Cooper, as you know, as you grow to know, he's running from like these soldiers trying to get away. You think he like busted out from somewhere, but it's actually like a training exercise that he's been trying to run away from these guys and not get caught. And I guess it's like 22 hours later he lasted, but he gets caught by, I think it's, what's his name, Ray, or the dude, the special forces dude, Davos Seaworth from Game of Thrones catches him.
Yeah, Ryan.
Ryan, that's it.
Yeah, Captain Ryan.
Ray. Captain Ryan. He catches him. Said he like, oh, you lasted good 22 hours. You're like, I have one more final test. You got to kill this dog. It was like, what does this have to do with anything? Why, like,
no,
I'm not going to do it. He just straight up refuses. Where it's like, all right, I guess if you refuse. But man, this dude was just so adamant on this dude killing this dog. Like he was,
he was not
any of
he
it.
shoots him, right? He shoots the dog, right?
Oh yeah, right in front.
Yeah, Ryan
dude
shoots
like
him.
loses it.
Yeah,
Cooper
and he's like,
loses it.
what is he? He says something to him, and it comes back later in the movie. But he's like, I guess this is not your day, or something like that.
Yeah, because he shoots that dog like point blank. He just has the gun like right up to its head. And I was like, damn, like they wasted no time on making you hate this character at all.
Which is how you do it in cinema. If you want to hate your characters, you get them kill a dog. An interesting time I watched this time is I watched it with my brother who's visiting from the Navy right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting for him to like, because he's done some of these exercises, like where they've chased him and stuff like that.
Oh wow!
And he's like, no, they don't do it like this. And it was, I was telling him to shut. I was like, shut up, it's a movie. But like at the same time, I was like, okay, it's kind of interesting, you know. And I'll get to another point of it later in the story. But I was like, this is kind of a cool take on it.
Yeah, and then like Cooper ends up like punching him and trying to fight him after he kills the dog, and he doesn't get chosen for the special forces. He gets kicked out. Like you're not in the running. You don't make the cut. And then it cuts. Not only we start in Scotland, cuts 2 hours earlier, and then we're gonna cut 4 weeks later, like right away. Like it doesn't.
I feel like you didn't need these. Yeah, no. I feel like you didn't need these.
Not at all. And they're so close together. It's like, why? But pretty much Cooper is part of these soldiers that are dropped off in a helicopter, and they're just like part of an experiment or just like a little like field training, I guess, where they have to like just not get caught and try to survive for a while, I guess. But they have like blanks in their guns. They have stuff on the tips of them, so no blanks come out and like misfire or something. I don't know.
Yeah, same kind.
Yeah,
same kind of thing. This is again where Cody brought it up, I guess, and it's kind of cool. I guess now that they have guns that they just put paint rounds in, like it's not a blank anymore. It's like a paintball in a bullet, and they actually shoot people now.
That way,
like
you can tell if you actually get hit.
But it's a real gun still. It just has a paintball round in it. Like it's a real gun. Cody's like, it's just real guns, and you just shoot people with paintballs, basically. Like, that's dope.
I don't know if I like the sound of that.
Well, have you seen? I know we're getting sidetracked, and I'm sorry, but have you seen Child's Play 3?
It's been a long time, man.
In Child's Play 3, I remember when he said it that they're doing the same thing where they have paints rounds, but Chucky replaces all the bullets with real live rounds, and they're shooting each other then. Yeah. So I was like, that makes sense.
The only part I remember about Child's Play 3 is it being set on like a military base.
Yeah. Actually, I don't mind Child's. We're getting sidetracked. Go ahead. Don't get me on Child's Play now.
But you start getting introduced to these characters a little bit. They're pretty much worried about just getting home to watch football, watch old soccer on TV. There's a big game happening at night.
No, I like in this scene he gives that big long speech too, which is actually like pretty compelling. Like the speech is pretty compelling about the guys, and then the guy interrupts it with a joke.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. But they before we get to because that's like the camping scene that they have like as they're moving out. But before like they start moving out, they're talking about like how a couple people were killed, which we saw at the beginning of the movie here. And then they talk about like every so often just like groups of people will go missing in the woods.
From there, yeah.
Yeah, and as we'll find out, they are like hours away from like the nearest town and civilization because they're pretty much all alone in these woods here. And then you get a scene straight out of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs where they're just walking across like the hills, just whistling. And I was like, this is straight up Snow White. This is the dwarves coming home from work, man.
I didn't make that
it looks like it's the same like setup too. Like
just up the hill.
Yeah, in the foreground you just kind of see like their shadows going up like the hill and everything. I was like, this is exactly Snow White.
I didn't make that connection, but I see it now.
But yeah, and then they're like camping for the night and everything, and he has that whole story about like his buddy, like they're going out and he steps on like a landmine. He had to actually witness him like getting blown up. There was nothing left of him. They had to like scoop up the pieces of him and put him in a bag, and then they found like the tattoo that he had, and it was like the perfect piece of skin. Like everything else was charred and everything except this tattoo that he remembers him getting, and it was like a tattoo of the devil because he said like the devil was gonna save his skin or something, and
Yeah,
they didn't say how much of the skin he was gonna save, just a little piece,
just a little splash.
But it's very, and I feel like you get this throughout the movie. There's like little like Easter eggs or references or nods to these other movies, especially the end of the story. It felt very Quint from Jaws, the USS Indianapolis speech, the way that he paces it, and kind of the way that he's just taught, like he kind of finishes the story, the pauses and stuff that he has in it is very reminiscent of that speech.
Or you could say that Eddie was just unlucky. Either way, it taught me to keep a very open mind.
And I feel like that was definitely on purpose, because there's a couple other parts in this movie where I was like, that's from another movie I've seen or whatever. But like,
it's definitely homage to it. Yeah,
it's definitely homage to it.
Now I gotta say, this is one of my complaints comes from the whole movie, but this scene's really where I pick up on it. It's not necessarily a complaint, but this movie's hard to follow if you're not paying attention because they talk with such accents. Like the whole movie. I watched it with
subtitles the whole time.
Yeah, because the movie is very, and I'm gonna get the accent wrong, but I'm gonna say it's probably a Cockney accent, Welsh accent, something like that. But the whole movie, it's like Snatch. I don't know if you've ever seen Snatch, but like it's like that, where it's very hard to follow on how they talk because like they're talking in accents like and different vernaculars than us, you know. So I do have a hard time following some scenes sometimes unless you're really paying attention.
It was about 15-20 minutes in where I had to turn the subtitles on just so I knew exactly what they were saying, but within the context of the scene you kind of understand what they mean by it,
for sure.
And as like right after that story, a guy starts telling a joke, and then you just get a cow just flying right into the scene, just plopped right in the middle of them, blood everywhere, and they start freaking out. And then you probably get one of the worst night vision scenes I've seen in a while, and it's clearly shot during the daytime.
Oh, I kind of like it. It's black and white.
It's not even black. It's just like, it looks like it's shot during daytime, and they just put a green filter over it. But yeah, like what you're saying with the werewolves, it's black and white.
Oh, okay.
Because it cuts to the other dude, the bad guy from the special forces,
looking at him.
Yeah, he's looking at him with like these like night vision binoculars, I guess. But the night vision in it, it's clearly shot during the daytime, and they just threw a green filter onto it. Because like in any other like night vision movie or night vision, like if you actually look through it, even at night, it would be black, but it would just be barely like kind of lit green. You would barely be able to see that much. Whereas like this, you see everything. It's clearly daytime with a green filter on it. And then it cuts to like the cool black and white shots of like the werewolves kind of running throughout the night. But that looked like it was clearly shot at nighttime too. So I don't know.
Oh yeah, sure.
But the reason I mention this, like especially with the black and white, is because there's a couple scenes here coming up with the werewolves where it's clearly a werewolf chasing somebody, but it's not in black and white. Like, and then they decide to go back to black and white when the werewolves are chasing them again later. So it's like, I feel like they just may have missed it in a couple scenes, or
like, how do the werewolves see? Like, if we're gonna do an FOP view, like a field of perspective view, like, let me know, you know?
Yeah, and the same thing is like they mentioned in this movie, it's like almost typical werewolf stuff where like silver can kill them. I guess if you light them on fire, they get the idea that fire kills them. But they're saying like, oh, the moon comes out at night and then the werewolves come and then they go in during the day. But there's a couple scenes in this movie where the werewolves clearly come out during the day and are chasing them and hunting them. So it's like they kind of broke their own rules at certain points too.
There's also some scenes in it, and we're getting to them, but like that, I think they're trying to tell us it's night, but like, or at least dusk. And I'm like, this is clearly daytime, you know?
The
like,
light's coming right through the windows. That's not moonlight. That's clearly daylight.
Daylight. Yeah. All right. First movie though, a little shoddy there.
Yeah. But yeah, during that night vision and the black and white segments, it looks like the leader of the special forces gets mauled and killed because you see like he gets attacked and the blood flies against the rock.
Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan. The other crew, the actual squad that were with most of the movie, the next morning, they actually come across the Special Forces camp, and there's just blood and guts everywhere, but there's no bodies to be found, except for Ryan. He is still alive. He's got a huge just scratch across his chest and everything. Cooper immediately recognizes him. And Ryan's just freaking out at this point like, because he was not expecting them to be multiple of these werewolves. He kept saying, like, there's only supposed to be one. There's only supposed to be one. That kind of freaks the soldiers out. You know, from everything from the night previous to this, they're like, all right, training's over. We're going live. We're putting bullets in. We're getting the hell up out of here.
Yeah.
And like all the radios are busted, so they just kind of have to take the old Shoelace Express up out of those woods if they can. As they're running out, they get attacked. Bruce, they never say his last name, but he's credited at, like, the character's name is Bruce Campbell in the movie.
Is it?
Yeah,
right.
They always call him Bruce, but in like he's credited as Bruce Campbell is the character.
Gotta be a nod.
It has to be, yeah. But he's running like away from one of these werewolves, and this is the scene where I was mentioning as he's getting chased. It's not in black and white; like he's getting chased and it's all in color. So they must have just forgot to add the black and white for the werewolf vision. But you think he gets mauled and attacked, but no, he just runs straight into a tree, and you had to have been running hard and not paying attention.
Yeah,
because that tree branch is straight through him and impaled him straight through, and he's sticking out the back, man. And it, like, add insult to injury, man, that werewolf just comes up and just slaps the shit out of him and breaks that branch off.
They had to have done that for humor, though. I'm watching and I'm like, how that's an actual scene. If you ever seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil, like that's an actual scene of him running into a tree branch, and I'm just like, this has been made fun of. But yeah, that is the scene where they cut back and forth. So they're getting chased at this point. The whole crew is. Yeah,
and then Sarge is trying to go and rescue Bruce. He comes across like half of his body laying there, and then he gets attacked. And this is during the daytime as well, as we've mentioned. And you know, Sarge gets attacked and he gets like disemboweled, like his guts are hanging out all over the place. They're like trying to stuff him back in.
just put him back in. He actually says that. Just stuff
put him back in. And I feel like, man, with all the pain and just looking down and seeing your guts, I feel like you would just pass out of shock at that point. They would have to carry your ass. But man, like they just prop him up and just kind of running with them throughout this next scene. And I really like this next scene because it's just kind of a very far away shot of just these woods, this tree line, and they're just kind of running through, and you see like these very far away shots of the wolves running too. And then they run across Megan in her Jeep. She just happens to be driving by when they're just jumping down over that next hill. And they just kind of commandeer her vehicle and get in there and take off. And as they're like taking off, like the wolf puts his arm down through and it starts sawing through its arm. It's pretty gnarly.
Yeah, it's good gore here. Again, all practical.
Yeah, everything's practical, and I thought for some reason this it is kind of gory, and it has some gorier scenes like towards the end of it. But for some reason, I remember this movie being way gorier than it is.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad at all. And for some reason, I always remember seeing the werewolves more than you do as well. You really don't get too many up close and personal scenes with them, kind of towards the end, but they don't really linger on like with the camera as much.
There's one big one, and then there's like right in the end there's about 2 or 3 more like where you really get to see what you're looking at.
Yeah. And then you pretty much go right where we're going to be for the rest of the movie here, which is the farmhouse, this just empty farmhouse that this woman takes them to. And you have like a jump scare with a normal dog in here, and as soon as he jump scares him, the dog just like shakes his hand, like, "Oh, nice to meet you. Welcome to the farmhouse."
I've been living with these things for crazy long time.
Yeah, I'm like, man, you should keep going. You shouldn't have stopped here. But this dog is just kind of there through the rest of the movie, and then it kind of helps out towards the end a little bit. But it's just kind of there. Like the werewolves don't really fuck with it too much. It's not like the only person that's bothered by this dog is Ryan,
because he hates dogs. Apparently,
Ryan just hates dogs. They never dive into his hatred of dogs, really. But
it's the werewolf's dogs, right? Like that's what they're trying to say, right?
Yeah, the family that was there, I guess it was the werewolves, and that's their dog.
And
so
that's their dog. So they like
I guess
him.
the dog would be cool.
Yeah, he's cool. He's like whatever.
But they make the stupid decision as they're surrounded by the wolves, which is a cool scene as like the wolves are kind of circling around the house in their pack. Just lingering around the tree line. The dude just shoots the car and it blows up. And it's like, why would you do that? Like, you're not going to kill all those wolves by blowing up that one car, man. And you just ruin your like only escape route that you know of
down a
at the
car.
point. Yeah, exactly. This could have been a lot worse than it was, like a lot gorier. But they decide to patch Sarge up. They take him upstairs onto the bed, and they're like, "Well, the only way we know how is super glue." And they talk about how like super glue is how they like bonded wounds and stuff during like Vietnam and stuff. So like they just pouring like super glue all over their hands and trying to like stuff his intestines and stuff. And you don't really get to see it. It's kind of a far away shot. It's just you're thinking about it happening, but like Sarge is like crying and drinking this like alcohol they gave to him and telling Cooper how much he loves him.
This is one of my favorite. Sarge is hilarious in this, by the way.
Oh yeah.
But this is one of my favorite lines where he's like,
Hit me! Oh, you fucking pussy, hit me!
punches him again before he even gets the thing out.
Yeah, I thought that was great. It just knocks his ass out. But like, I don't know, like, man, that would suck having to get your intestines put back, and then you have to sit there and hold your stomach shut until the super glue dries, and then he's fine pretty much for a while until you inevitably see what happens. But we'll get to that.
You got scratched by a wolf. I think you guys know where this is going.
Yeah, exactly. Megan pretty much gives the same explanation like 3 different times throughout this movie. Like between all these different lulls between the action when the werewolves decide they want to attack the house, she just pretty much just goes over what we already know. Just like, they're werewolves. Like,
it's just different people each time.
Yeah, and it was like, what do you mean they're werewolves? Are you serious? And even like after the werewolves come into the house at one point and start attacking them, the one dude's like, "You're really serious about this werewolf business, aren't you, lady?" It's like, did you not just see what you were fighting?
I think that is.
Yeah, what do you... like, come on, man. Like, it kind of reminded me of, like, From Dusk Till Dawn with, like, Bruce, George Clooney. He's like, I didn't believe in vampires until I actually had to fucking start killing these damn vampires.
Because I don't fucking believe in vampires, but I believe in my own 2 eyes, and what I saw is fucking vampires.
Like, come on, man. You fought these things the whole way to the house, and then while they're bombarding the house, and then you're really curious if it's werewolves or not still?
So one of my favorite scenes, and we're getting right to it, right after they patch him up, is like the first major attack on the house. And like werewolves are trying to get in. They're defending each point. I don't know if you noticed this, but there's a scene when the werewolf is coming in. The guy is charging him with the shotgun, and he's just like blasting it. And then the werewolf pulls the shotgun out of the window. I don't know if it's in your cut, but in my cut, the shotgun shoots back into the house. So all that could have happened there is that the werewolf pulled that shotgun and turned it and shot it back into the window.
See, I don't remember that.
Yeah, man, if you ever rewatch it, when he's charging it, I was laughing my ass off. It's the first time I ever noticed it. He's charging it, werewolf grabs it, shoots back into the house, and the guy like ducks down into the thing. I'm like, did that werewolf just shoot back in? And if so, why did they use all those weapons all the time? Because these could have really been dog soldiers at this point.
Yeah, like, you think werewolves are bad enough by themselves? Like, give them guns, man.
One can use a shotgun.
They're gonna be sitting at the edge of the wood line where they're kind of prowling around and just firing at the house. But yeah, like, as I said, Megan's just explaining the werewolf stuff like every time you see her. That they hunt during a full moon, that they disappear during the day, which it doesn't seem like that's true because they were just trying to kill the people during the day.
Yeah.
And Cooper is very suspicious of Ryan because he's kind of like giving these smart ass comments here and there, just, giving his 2 cents and just kind of saying some ominous bullshit. So they decide to check his wound, and it's starting to heal up a little bit because he was even saying like, you were crying, you were barely able to like walk on the way here, and now you're totally fine. Like, what's the deal? So you automatically know, like, all right, Ryan's probably going to be turned at some point. They should probably keep an eye on him. And then, like, around that point is when they tie him up to the fucking chair and everything. And then the werewolves are smart as hell. Not only can they shoot guns, as you said previously, but they end up cutting the power.
Yep.
They cut the power to the house. I wish we would have got to see some of this stuff. I want to see the werewolves going out and cutting the power.
Or in a helmet shooting gun.
Yeah, and this is where they decide to stand their ground, and you get one of the bigger moments where they kind of rush the house and they start coming in the windows and everything. And what's great is they're even like, oh, we're running out of ammo, because every time, like, during these lulls, they're like, all right, ammo check, and each time it gets kind of lower each time. And they're like, all right, men, 3-round bursts only. Like, that's what we're gonna do, conserve ammo. And immediately, like, when they start fighting, they're just unloading, holding the trigger down, spraying and praying.
Could you help yourself though? Like if you were in that situation,
Yeah.
I would have been doing the same thing. Like ah.
Exactly. Like you can't even help it, man. You're just fighting
Yeah.
to survive at that point. That like they're coming through the windows. I think is that the one where you get that cool moment where they're coming through the window with Sarge, where like it's like one of the most well-known pictures of this movie is that werewolf
Yeah.
standing there in front of the bed.
That is the second attack is the second when he must climb up because Sarge is in the upstairs, and that's where I was saying that's the first real good look you get of these werewolves. He's standing in front of the bed. That is the most famous shot. What
makes you think is like how did he climb up there that time? Because later in the movie they purposely put a rope out the window for a person to climb out and climb in, and even the werewolf climbs up the rope to get in because they cut the rope and the werewolf falls off the house. So like, how did the first werewolf get up in there to begin with?
Probably a ladder, man. They can do whatever they want. No, it's just that's a really cool scene too. And he's like yelling at Sarge to get up. And then I love when Sarge does wake up and he sees the werewolf and he's got like the pistol in one hand and he's just shooting the shit out of this thing out the window.
Yeah, and then you get a line that it's a little cringe. But like it makes sense for this kind of movie. He's like, dogs, more like pussies.
And I don't know how you feel, and you'll probably go over it in the end. But again, this is the first good shot you get of the werewolf.
Yeah.
And I actually love the look of the werewolves.
Yeah.
I love their long, slender bodies. They don't really hunch over. They're real tall.
Real tall.
Like real tall with just like it almost just looks like a person with a big like helmet on, like
it kind of reminds you of like the look of The Howling, like the wolves in The Howling a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen The Howling in many years, but yeah.
Yeah, this one's way more like wolf-like, I feel like, in the face than The Howling is, though.
Well, I think they look fantastic, and I think the practical effects here, I think they use their budget very like wisely. I'm sure they only had one or two of these suits, and that's why they couldn't show us a bunch of werewolves all the time. But when you do get it, and you get a good look at them, it's not like you get like it's not like a quick flash, you get a good long look at this werewolf.
That's how it is for the first like half of the movie. Like you get those quick glimpses of them. Like the less you you know, it's a little bit more scarier. And then like
in their arm, you're just seeing like their face and stuff. Yeah.
And then like as they're attacking the house, that's when you really get to see like more of them and them holding on the werewolves a little longer. Kind of you get to see their features more. Megan announces that she knows Ryan from the first visit. They have a history. Apparently, this isn't the first time the special forces have come to investigate the woods. They were actually coming to investigate the missing persons. So Megan, it seems like now she knows stuff. Like at this point, they should be just questioning the shit out of this girl because every single time there's stuff that she's not telling them. So it's like
the answers.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, you just told us a little bit more new information, and then they just let it go for a while. And like after the next attack, they find out more information about her. She's lying again. But they come up with the plan to hotwire a car in the garage, and they use Spoon as bait. And this is what I mentioned before, where they have like two windows outside of like the upstairs room where Sarge is. Spoon goes out the one end to distract the wolves, and the other dude goes out the other side to go to the garage and hotwire the car. Spoon, he does his job pretty well by distracting all the wolves with like the flare and everything.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. I like that scene though in the garage when the dude's like hot wiring the car and like the lights turn on and that werewolf is like eating the dude and just decapitates the head and chucks it at him.
Yeah, who is that guy though? It must have been a kill from the first like thing. I was like, who is that dude? But I don't
remember his name, to be honest.
But that is a cool scene, yeah.
Yeah, and the head's just sitting like on the hood of the car while he's like freaking out, and he like backs through the garage and everything. And almost into the house, too. Like, he backs it right up to the house.
Right up to the door.
Yeah, and this is a scene I feel is, like, very Jurassic Park. Like, with Nedry and the Dilophosaurus in the car. Where he's, like, sitting there and you can see, like, the breath, the fog from the breath in the back seat. He's like, oh, he's right behind me, isn't there?
He's right behind me. And they kind of missed an opportunity. They never showed it either. I was like, show the werewolf back there,
Yeah. Where, like, you expected, like, a quick cut to, like that werewolf. Yeah. I don't think you needed the line. I think if he would have just sat there and saw the breath, it would have worked perfectly. You didn't need oh, it's right behind me, isn't it?
You get a bunch of those lines. There's a couple coming up here.
Yeah, but I love like whenever they like go and they open up the back door and all the blood just pools out of the truck, and then you see the werewolf sitting in there just covered in blood, just ripping them apart.
Yeah.
I really like that though, because it's just like a pool of blood that just gushes right out of that fucking car. And then they just kind of ignore the car for a while too. After that, they just like, all right, we're sticking in the house for now.
Yeah, well, they're back to
staying here.
talking again.
Again. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, this was kind of cool. They play Claire de Luna. By Claude Debussy. Megan's playing it on piano, which apparently in French that song means moonlight. So it's pretty interesting.
Double entendre.
Yeah, and this song is in a ton of shit. Every time I hear it, I think of The Evil Within, the game, because that's the song that plays in like the safe room. Every time you go in the safe room, that song plays.
Never played.
But it's a great choice of song in this situation. Ryan is sent to capture a wolf. But they use the squad as bait, that you find out, because they kind of interrogate him more, and they find out that the special forces utilize their squad and put them in there pretty much as bait to lure these werewolves out so they can kill them and trap them. They wanted to trap them to bring them back and use them as weapons of warfare, pretty much. They wanted to use them as dog soldiers.
Time drop.
Yeah, which they never say it. You think they, like, at that point, you're like, they wanted to use them as dog soldiers. And you're like,
say it.
With all these other lines, man, they should have said it. Just go right out with it. Of course, Ryan, it's at that point in the movie, you know he's going to turn at some point, and he decides to turn. And they happen to just have a big-ass sword in this house somewhere. Like, they show it beforehand, because I think Spoon is fucking with it, like, swinging it around and stuff. But they actually kind of try to use it to kill this werewolf, and he stabs it through him. And it doesn't do anything. He's just throwing people across the room.
Doesn't care. He looks cool too. He's another werewolf that looks a little different than the rest of them. He's like mangier almost up top.
Yeah, and they even mention about how there's the different kind of wolves. Like there's the pack leader, and then there's like the second in charge or whatever. Whereas like, and that one you do get kind of a different look, but the other ones I couldn't really tell a difference between them.
He's the only one that I think looks any different.
Yeah, and this is really the only like almost real transformation you get in the movie, where you get like the yellow eyes, and I like whenever he like dips behind the table and you could hear like his clothes ripping, and then there's like the claw comes up and just scrapes across the table. I like that, and then just the full werewolf comes up. It was really cool.
Yeah, I gotta say, and most people love a good transformation scene. I mean, that's what American Werewolf in London's so famous for.
Oh yeah.
This one's not great. This one's fine.
No, they pretty much hide the whole thing from you.
Yeah, they didn't have the budget for that.
No, no, not at all. They only had the budget just for these suits and just a little prosthetics on the hand and a bunch of blood they could use. They talk about that the packs of these wolves, normally they shelter in like closed, warm areas, so they automatically assume that all these wolves are hiding in this shed where they got the car from originally, like underneath the shed or something.
Yeah.
So they get the bright idea of blowing up their only car, trying to destroy all these wolves. And it turns out it was for nothing anyway. It was all one big trick planned by Megan this whole damn time. If they might have got this out of her if they would have interrogated her a lot sooner.
Yeah, didn't just trust her right off the bat.
Yeah, because like they send the car. They have like these tanks like of something. I don't know what it was, but they put them in the back of this truck. Yeah, and they like line gas the whole way up to it, and they just drive the truck in there, and then Sarge comes running out with a Molotov and throws it on the ground, which is it looks like he's gonna chuck it and it's gonna be like a cool dramatic shot, but no, he like throws it on the ground directly in front of him.
It bounces too. You can tell. I don't know if you know, but you can tell it's a fake bottle because it bounces and then like goes off camera and breaks.
Oh, I thought that was gonna be a little bit cooler than that. But I guess
make
not.
It to the garage or something.
Yeah, exactly. You thought that was gonna happen, but they end up blowing up their only car left. Like that was their only way of escape. And then Megan's like, "Oh yeah, I guess I lied. There was no wolves in there all along. Sorry." And then she turns out that she is part of that family. She wasn't there as like a zoologist, kind of hiding out in a different place. She lied to him about like the phones being like 50 miles. She lied about the nearest town being so close or whatever. Pretty much everything was all one big lie, and she was luring them all there to meet their maker and become wolves, become soldiers in this for the dogs, pretty much.
Yeah. This is my least favorite line, most cringy line to me. She says to him, but right as she turns, she says,
"It's that time of the month."
Oh,
and I'm
my
like,
God.
Did they make a period joke right now?
They totally did.
Mid fucking
Yeah, and that's when like her eyes are
transformation.
yellow and she has like the
Yeah.
sharp teeth.
It's just cringe. I'm like, come on, come on.
There's a couple of those, but I like whenever like I don't know if it was whenever she said that or as she was talking, but you have the wolves that kind of sit up behind her, and then
Oh,
it
yeah,
pans
that's
out
cool.
and all like 4 or 5 wolves are sitting behind her. I
Like in the
that shot.
hallway.
Yeah,
That is a cool shot. Yeah.
yeah, because you don't really see their features; you just kind of see the outlines of it. It's a pretty creepy shot, and then she has that line and kind
There's
of ruins
a couple
it.
times, even when they're attacking the house, like when they're talking, you can see them in the windows and stuff. Like you can see just like their shapes and shit. So
Yeah.
I think that's well done.
Yeah, and then like they're looking out the windows at certain points. You see them like kind of walking around like the tree line around the house
Yeah.
and stuff. It was really cool. The werewolves are in the house fully at this point, and they're just trying to make it out alive. Everybody's
This is it.
kind
This
of,
is the
it's a
climax. Yeah.
free-for-all.
This is the climax.
Yeah, Spoon's in the kitchen fist fighting this
Doing well
werewolf.
too. Come on, man. That guy fist fought that werewolf for a good long while.
For a while, and he's just like throwing pans at it, trying to fight it with this sword at first. He gets his shit rocked after a while, but you're like you said, he does pretty well for himself for a while. He should have probably got out of that kitchen though. Try to regroup with somebody
I'm like,
else.
I don't think you're gonna win, man. Maybe run.
Yeah, and as he's doing that, because he got separated from them, because they ran upstairs, and as he was going to go upstairs, like the wolves came in and stopped him, so he ran to the kitchen. But Cooper and Sergeant are upstairs. Cooper's in one room, he blockaded himself in, and Sergeant is like in this tiny little bathroom with like this blue like glow stick hanging out of his mouth, and he's using like a homemade flamethrower, like a can of hairspray, trying to keep him out. And Cooper's trying to bash through the walls just to kind of get them out and go through. And I don't know if this would have actually happened, but they regroup and they're like, get in the wardrobe, and they're hiding in this wardrobe, and they just shoot the floor and they fall through the floor.
I like that line though. I don't know why, but I've always liked that line where he's like, close your eyes and mind your toes.
Yeah.
I'm like, mind your toes? You're shooting at my feet.
Yeah.
Like,
you're shooting everywhere, man.
like you shot a circle enough that we fell through.
Yeah.
You're telling me to mind my toes?
He should have stood outside of the wardrobe for him
And
to just
shot
shoot the
it.
floor and then jump into it.
They find that cellar because they break the kitchen table.
Yeah,
and they find the cellar
Ryan
underneath
throws
it.
him down because he starts turning, and he's gonna sacrifice himself because he cuts the like gas line for the stove, and then I don't know how he survived this, but Cooper jumps into the basement and they blow the whole fucking house up.
Yeah, I do like the scene though where he's trying to light the lighter and the werewolf just like smacks that fucking lighter out of his hands, and then he's got a cool send off line too. I forget what it is, and then he hits the pilot and just big explosion.
Yeah,
blows his whole house up.
I think it definitely would have killed Cooper, even though he was in the basement.
For sure would have killed Cooper. Yeah, like the explosions go down too. They don't just go in one singular direction, you know.
Yeah, and you think it's over. You think Coop is home free, and nope, he's not. That Ryan is just hiding in the basement as a werewolf, and then you get the fight between Cooper and Ryan, and then that terrible scene of like that blade going into his mouth and just scraping his teeth. It was like, ugh.
It's awful. This is where the dog helps. The dog helps when Ryan is attacking him. He comes and bites Ryan.
Yeah, and this was made before Resident Evil 4, but it reminds me of Resident Evil 4. If you save the dog in the beginning, he comes back and distracts the giant.
El or whatever.
Yeah, he distracts him while you try to kill him. Similar to this one, they kind of save the dog and help. Like the dog was there with him the whole movie, and then the dog helps him. But yeah, he ends up killing the werewolf by finding that silver letter opener. You knew it was going to come back at some point, and it comes back in like the last 5 minutes of this movie.
Yeah.
They introduce the beginning, and it's at the very end. So I guess whenever they kill their victims, they just rob them and take their possessions and put them in the basement.
Well, they had the guy hanging there, like almost like he's a kebab, and they were like cutting him open.
Yeah, there was bodies hanging in the basement and stuff. So now, I guess they were cannibals. Well, not I guess if they were wolves, but yeah.
This is the weird part to me. He stabs Ryan, and then he lays down and he says whatever that line is that Ryan said to him, and he shoots him in the head. But I'm like, how did that? Like, I get the silver killed him, but it seemed like the silver barely affected him, and the gunshots would
a little bit. Like you could see the smoke coming off, but like your gunshots weren't doing much before. How did you blow his head off? Yeah.
Yeah. Now it like is this bloody mess, and that's like the final shot of it. You know.
Yeah. Yep. The dog helps him out. He blows the wolf's brain, Ryan's brains out. And he just walks outside and cuts the credits, and then you get a pretty funny scene here, because we didn't mention here before. Every time that the wolves were trying to come into the house, they had this Polaroid camera that they would use the flash on to distract or like kind of temporarily like blind the wolves a little bit. Like as the wolves were coming into the house or coming through the windows, they would blind them. Even in that moment, whenever like the wolf is attacking Sarge in the room, they just keep flashing it with the camera. And right before the credits here, you're getting all the pictures from the Polaroids,
which is cool. I thought that was kind of cool.
I thought it was pretty cool too. And then like, I'm guessing that's what Sarge hands him, right? Because I never knew what he hands him. Because Sarge, like before he sends him in the basement, he hands him something. I'm guessing that's the picture,
the film.
That's the film. Because after you see the pictures, you get a tabloid of a newspaper of Cooper saying like werewolves killed my squad.
Yeah, but I feel like they're making like a joke of it, like they don't believe him because it's like a little side story. I'm like, he's got pictures.
What more do you want?
Yeah, like come on. What do you think, they staged this whole thing with him and then he killed him? It was such like a side story. I'm like, that would be front page news, you know?
Yeah, for real. That would be like the headline, because it was just like in the bottom corner of this newspaper. It would have been in bold print at the top, like the whole thing.
That's why I thought they were making it that like he was crazy and like nobody believed him, which all right, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the movie, man. That's Dog Soldiers. I enjoyed it though. It was pretty entertaining throughout. I didn't think it slogged really at all. I didn't think it had a lot of slow paces. The only time was just like in between the fights a little bit, when you got a little bit of the same exposition. I think they could have varied it up a little bit more, kind of made it a little bit more interesting. But it is what it is, and it's a nice, cheesy little horror movie that you get.
I think, and I'm not obviously comparing it to this because it's a classic, but I think if you like the setup of Night of the Living Dead, a haunted house kind of siege movie, this is where it's instead of zombies, it's werewolves. You know,
I didn't put that together. Like this is an homage to Night of the Living Dead, of them just being trapped in this house and being bombarded by not zombies in this case, but werewolves.
Werewolves in this case, yeah. That's exactly what it is. And if you're okay with that, like what I said, it's paced pretty well. But you are basically on one location the entire movie. You're just in this house, you know, between like 3 or 4 rooms. But I love it. I think it's a good werewolf film.
Yeah, it was pretty enjoyable, and they do a great job of making you like these characters too.
Yeah,
like throughout.
Definitely.
I think they're pretty well written. There's not a lot of like character development really, but I think you get a lot of good scenes with them just like talking with each other and getting to know kind of the quirks of each character a little bit and who they are, and it kind of gives you a little you get attached to some of these characters a little bit. Yeah. So whenever they do die, it's like, oh, that sucks. I kind of like that character.
Well, you can definitely tell the ones that are going to survive. Like Spoon gets some of the most character development, and he is one that survives the longest. You know, Cooper, obviously, Sarge, obviously, they get scenes and they survive for a long time.
Speaking of Spoon, I know you wouldn't have got this because you've never seen The Matrix. I don't know how you've never seen The Matrix, but there's a scene in The Matrix where Neo is talking to like this little kid, and the kid is bending the spoon with his mind. And he's like, well, he's trying to teach Neo how to do it. And he's like, well, what's the trick? And he's like, you got to think in your mind, there is no spoon. And in this movie, like whenever they're like, where's Spoon at? And it's like right after he gets blown up or whatever, he's like, there is no spoon. And it's like, yeah. And that's a little throwaway. That's one of the instances where you get a line from a different movie in this.
You can tell these people liked movies, creating a movie from people who liked movies.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I think, not only was it just enjoyable and fast paced, and you got some cool kills and some good gore, but you also get some little references, and they're paying homage to different movies from the past.
Yeah, I think that's definitely I think that's what this movie is.
Yeah, and I didn't really dive into it. I should have, but I don't think there's any sequels or like direct things to this. I think it's kind of its own standalone thing.
Yeah, I think it's just its own thing.
I mean, I think you could do something like something else, either a sequel or a prequel. Like make a prequel about the family that are werewolves, you know, that are actually going out and hunting these people and turning into werewolves and stuff. That'd be a cool little prequel movie.
Yeah, I'd watch that.
But yeah, I enjoyed this movie. What would you say? Would this be a buy it, rent it, or miss it, man?
Mine's a buy it. I really enjoy this film, and now again I got some personal sentiment with my kid.
Yeah.
And I have bought in this movie, so it's a buy it for me. It's one of my favorite werewolf films.
Okay.
I've said that multiple times at this point.
I would say rent it. I wouldn't say this is a buy for me. This was an enjoyable watch, but I I couldn't see myself going back to this movie too many times, to be honest. It wasn't bad by any means, though. It was an enjoyable watch. But if I'm gonna go to a werewolf movie, I'd probably go to like The Howling or American Werewolf in London, or even like old school The Wolfman. I'd probably go to that type of thing.
I haven't seen The Howling in years, so that might be a good watch for me. American Werewolf in London's a little too slow for me. Do love the film though. Not saying I don't love it. It's just a little slow for me.
Yeah, and it's not like a straight up horror movie either. It's very much a horror comedy, directed by John Landis and everything. Once again, go watch that review that I did with Joe Lascola from Movie Dumpster. It was a great time.
I gotta say, and my kid, and I am trying to get him into horror. He loves it so much because it's not a straight horror movie. I think this has a lot of action elements in it too, especially with the soldiers and the shooting. So I think it's a good blend of action and horror, which I think sometimes they don't do. I think sometimes horror movies are very slow paced and very like they move at the speed of a candle. And I think this is a good action horror film to get into. Yeah,
and I forget what the tagline, because I did, as I was looking at the movie and looking it up, I would see the tagline on, I think it was like the DVD release. It was like, it's Jaws meets Predator with werewolves or whatever. And I was like, I guess so. I guess it's a squad in the woods. They're getting attacked by something they don't know what it is. And
yeah, I'm with you, man.
The Jaws thing kind of makes sense because you don't really get to see the monster until like later.
Wait till the end.
Yeah, they use it sparingly. But yeah, it was a pretty good watch, man. For anybody that hasn't seen it, I would say I would recommend it if nobody has ever seen it. But yeah, that's the show here. Anything else you want to add here, Alex?
No, man. Thanks for having me on. I always appreciate it. I always like being here.
Yeah, man. Where can everybody find you?
You can always find me on Tap That Reviews. I'm always here. I love doing the stuff with Wyatt as much times as I do here. And like I said, Tap That Reviews.
Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to go follow us on Twitter at Cinema Trip Views. And also go check us out wherever you get your podcasts. We have audio-only versions of the show available pretty much everywhere. So check us out there and give us a good review as well. And also stick around all October long for all of our horror reviews. If there's any new trailers coming out, I'll do a trailer reaction of those. And we got some very special guests stopping in along the way throughout the month, so stay tuned because there's going to be a lot more reviews than normal for this month because there's a lot of new movies coming out as well as some of the older reviews for these old movies I'm going to do as well. So be on the lookout, and we'll see everybody next time.